All right, back to another show, and today I've got John Payne with me. John has been in the sports world, which is kind of cool because that's a big part of my 20-year career, and he's also an entrepreneur and building businesses. So it's going to be fun to talk to him. How's it going, John?
It's going good, man. Everything, weather. Hopefully, in Florida's getting humidity's going to go away soon, I think, and no mosquitoes. So this is when you start getting happy, man. I would just got to get COVID to leave with it.
I know, man. Well, I was sitting outside last night. It was like nice until I started getting eaten by mosquitoes. The temperature was good finally, but
I know. You just got to have a little deep woods off, and you're good, man. That's my sponsor, so I'm gonna.
I think the mosquitoes love that stuff. You get fuels them even more.
I agree, dude. I agree.
No, well, John, usually what I like to do is kind of get a background on my guests, like, how did you get to where you're at now? So kind of share with us a little bit of your journey on, where you're from and kind of, the stops along the way.
All right. People ask me, like, how'd you get in sports? And I was like, or what motivated you to get in sports? And I this is very true. I was like, air conditioning. They're like, what? I'm like, air conditioning, 100%. They're like, what? Like, listen, I grew up on a cattle ranch in Texas. My dad worked us like we were, and no offense to Amish people, but like worked us like we were Amish. Like I'm talking building fence, hauling hay, riding horses, rounding up cows, digging ditches, hot. And from the moment I could hand him something like a hammer or a shovel, like we were working. So wow. I started playing sports also to get out of having to work. So
just so you know.
No, and I'm not joking, man. Like it was, I mean, we had a great family, got two brothers, but man, he worked us. He got the full value between, 5 years old and I'd say 21 years old of just hard physical labor. And he kept saying that the name of our ranch was Pecan Valley Ranch. He's like, this is the University of Pecan Valley. He goes, nothing will be hard after this.
Yeah.
Because, you haul 15,000 bales of hay, which weigh 100 pounds, 500 pounds to 100 pounds a piece. Like, it's hard labor. So I actually, man, went to college. I played my senior year in high school. I got hurt playing football. I played football and basketball and ran track. And I wanted to keep playing. And my dad played pro football. And I got hurt, so I went to Navarro Junior College, which is now famous because of Netflix Cheer. But this was, kind of if you've seen that other thing, I think it was on Netflix as well, the Last Chance U concept.
Yeah.
That was me. I was the white dude there. But once again, I went to Navarro, played there, and then I went to SMU in Dallas. And SMU, was on the path my senior year to getting the death penalty. So I've got some really great stories I could tell you on that.
Did you play SMU as well?
I went there to play, and by the time I'd gotten there, I'd broken my neck, shoulder. Like I was basically, Joe Namath by then. Like I was done. And then plus I've been sitting on a ranch with no girls, no nightlife, and all of a sudden I'm in Dallas. I'm like, whoa, this is nice. So when you look at that, I graduated and I majored in physical education, which is I was going to coach. And I thought it would be relatively easy to be a, physical education major at SMU. It wasn't like pre-med, like kinesiology, all the anatomical biomechanics, like it was horrible. But I graduated. I had an opportunity to go work for the St. Louis Cardinals. They had just moved from St. Louis to Phoenix. And there was a reason why I wanted to go to Phoenix. I won't get into, but my dad knew the offensive coordinator there a long time ago. And he's like, hey man, you can go scout. So I was going to be a scout actually for the Phoenix Cardinals. And then once again, I figured out that's kind of washing jocks and t-shirts. And I'm like, I've been around football, screaming, yelling. I was like, I just don't know if I want to do it. And my dad was like, well, just come back and work on the ranch. And you figure out what you want to do. So I did that for 6 months. After 6 months, I was like, oh. So I went into San Antonio, Texas. No shit. and got a job in a restaurant washing dishes with a degree from Southern Methodist University, which, if anybody knows about SMU, it's like, very affluent, uppity white people. And I'm washing dishes, man. And then I worked my way up from washing dishes to a busboy, and I was cleaning a guy's table. And I heard him say, yeah, my nephew is interviewing with the San Antonio Spurs. He just graduated from the University of Texas, and he's interviewing for a position to sell season tickets. So I'm like cleaning their table. And this guy was a federal judge. His name was Hippo Garcia. You can Google him. Matches. And so I'm cleaning off his table and picking up his plates. I'm like, shit, I'm off tomorrow. So I literally just went down to the Spurs office, their old office, the old Hemisphere Arena. And I walked in, and there was a lady sitting at the at the reception area. I mean, and I just walked in. She goes, "What you want?" I'm like, "Hey," I said, "I hear you guys are hiring to sell season tickets." She said, "Oh, really?" She said, "What's your name?" I said, "My name's John Payne." She's like, "You got to be kidding me!" And I'm like, "What?" She's like, "My name's Yvette Payne." She goes, "We must be related." So we were just chatting, and then Bob Bass, who was the general manager of the Spurs at the time, he just passed away. He was he was a GM, was his last gig for Charlotte. Little bitty, short, older guy from Oklahoma. I knew who he was just because I grew up in the area, and I knew he was the general manager. He comes walking through. He's got cowboy boots on, jeans. He's country as hell. He's from Oklahoma, and she's like, "Bob Bass, this white boy right here want to work. He want to sell tickets." And he's like, "You ever sold anything, son?" I'm like, "Yeah, like horses, cows." I said, "I grew up on a ranch, He's like, "Me too." He's like, "Go see this guy, Joe Clark." So he walked me to Joe Clark, who was a 26-year-old guy out of Wisconsin, who was director of sales for the San Antonio Spurs ticket sales. And he's like, "Joe, this guy wants a job here selling tickets. Get him a job." So Joe sat me down, and it was like, he's just like, God, he literally did it. He's like, "Sell me this pen." The whole concept of
Right.
knives. He's like, "How would you sell me this pen?" And I'm like, "Really?" I'd ask if you're left-handed or right-handed, I guess. I mean, I don't know. What's your favorite color, blue or black? Red. And he's like, "Okay." And I'm like, "You should buy quantity, not just one." I just was like, so I'm going to give you my stupid answers. If you really want me to sell you a pen. I had no idea. And he asked me, he's like, "Why do you want a job here?" And I said, "Listen, man, I enjoy sports. I played sports. I've been around sports my whole life. And you have air conditioning." And he just died laughing. He's like, "Seriously, air conditioning?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. Listen, man, I've been outside for a long time in my life. I need some air conditioning, and I want to come into a place to sit down and just work." So they brought 20 of us in to sell season tickets from right as everybody got out of school till September. That was it. And Red Mccombs owned the team, who was a car dealer. He owned the Minnesota Vikings for a while, but this dude is no nonsense, no BS, big, burly, redhead, cowboy hat wearing, cussing at you, So they had 20 of us in there, all of us out of college, and the top 4 salespeople got a full-time gig in September. Everybody else, you're gone. And your business card had San Antonio Spurs on it and a blank line that you had to write your name in. That was how temporary you were, and they paid us $400 a month, 10% commission. And I remember Red McCombs walked us in. There was 20 of us sitting in this conference room, this old rickety office. And we had just been given our quotas, each one of us have to sell 6 tickets a week or 8 tickets or 4 tickets or whatever. And he went around the table. He's like, "What's your quota?" And he asked every single person what their quota was. And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "We'll have a sales meeting this time next week." It was on a Friday. And it was every Friday. So I remember the next week, everybody was laughing and joking. And dude, I was starving. I had no money. So I showed up early. Every morning I was there and the door was locked. I had my little lunch bag because I didn't have any money. And Red McCombs would walk in with Gary Woods, who was the president, and this other guy who was a senior VP at the Spurs. And I'd be sitting there. And they're like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm the new sales rep." But so they'd unlock the door. After 3 days, Red McCombs like, give this guy a key so he doesn't have to sit outside every morning. But, I came in early. I did not leave for lunch. I worked all the way through. I stayed till 7 o'clock. And a lot of other guys were getting up and having long lunches. They were coming in right at 9. They were leaving at 5. It was fun to them. Like it was a frat house. And I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. Like Red McCombs he is a no-nonsense dude. He came back in that next Friday, and he remembered everybody's number they were supposed to hit. And he went person by person. He's like, you're supposed to sell 8. How many did you sell? He's like, 6. He's like, you have until next week. You owe me 8 plus the 2 you didn't get. So you're on for 10. And he went person by person. That room tightened up like you wouldn't believe.
Damn.
These dudes that have been like all lackadaisical, they're running back trying to dial in and get people to. I killed everybody, man. Crushed it. But I outworked them.
Yeah.
And I went from ticket sales to sponsorship. Then we got David Robinson, so things started really getting great. Like Larry Brown came in. Alvin Gentry and I were roommates for like 5 years. He was the coach in the league. He was the last coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. Just got fired. But we lived together. I had an amazing time. Greg Popovich lived across the street. So I got to be on the team side of things. I was in the front office side. I got to sell tickets, then group sales, and I moved to sponsorships. I came up with 2 or 3 really big revenue programs using in-cap displays and HEB. And it made a ton of money. And everybody in the league wanted to know about it. So I was 26 years old, and they invited me to go to the NBA league meetings, which was in Boca. It was the first time I ever came to Florida. And I remember going to Boca. I was like, holy shit, this is nice, man. Like all the coaches and GMs were there. This is back in the day when they did it, where coaches, GMs, everybody, front office executives, commissioners, everybody's there. And I had to go present this concept that made a ton of money. And then all of a sudden I started getting recruited by teams on, hey, we want to talk to you. And the DeVos family had just bought the Magic and invited me to come in. I went to the Nuggets. I went to 2 or 3 teams. I felt like I was like getting recruited again. But I came to Orlando, and with the DeVos family, when they bought the team, I was like, they're good people. They had a pretty good front office. And for whatever reason, dude, I was single. I was like, yeah, man, I'll take the gig. Like, a week later, we won the lottery and got Shaq, and then we got Penny. So, things were on an uptick. Except I would pitch, I'd get on the phones and just start wearing people out about, this guy's Shaquille O'Neal. Nobody really knew. There's a big football mentality here. So everybody's like Scott Skiles said, the NBA's like church. A lot of people go, but few people really understand it. So, but I started, just really selling like the way I always did, which is just pick up the phone, move out in the world, call people. Had a great run at it. And then when Shaquille left and went to the Lakers, which I have the real story on all that too, if you want it. That's when they promoted me. They're like, now we want to put you in charge. I'm like, you put me in charge when like the big fella's gone and like the team's gonna. But the good thing is, it was an opportunity because we were at about $6 million in revenue, and by the time I left, 4 or 5 years later, we were well over $30 million in revenue. We were killing it. But I approached it differently than just kind of setting up a traditional, sales guys go out and sell. Like we set up a whole infrastructure, account people that could help, keep salespeople free. We, accountable. We really changed a lot of the way that I think you approach selling sponsorships with a much more strategic application. We built a staff up. It was great. I loved it. And then
when you were with the Magic.
Say what?
Like how big was your department with the Magic that you oversaw?
Yes, good question. So I think we probably, when I was there, when I started there was 3 of us. I got Chris Dorso, who's still there, is like over ticket sales now. He was there, and one other guy. That was it. By the time when I asked him, I said, if I'm going to take over and put me in charge of everything, I'll keep a small salary. Give me a percentage of whatever I grow from this number forward. But let me build a staff that keeps things organized, fluid, and gives us the opportunity to add and test and try new things. So I would say probably within about a year of being in charge, I had it up to about probably 15 to 20 people. So, we had, sales reps that focused on certain things. We had, younger sales reps we were bringing up in training. We had account people. I had Charlie Freeman, who's the president, actually, of the Magic now, was kind of my whiz kid that came in from Rollins that could run numbers and, strategies and kind of think through things. I'm severely dyslexic. So, like, he would help me, structure things. I had a lady named Hallie Stiglitz who was amazing. So we really built something unique. And then, like I said, I met a woman here in Orlando. I never planned to stay here. And the whole time we dated, she's like, "Oh, I'll move wherever you want to move." Because my goal was to like be a president of a team. So I had opportunities, and I would go meet with the team. I'd come back. She's like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, "Great." And we get married, and on our honeymoon, she's like, first night on our honeymoon, she's like, "I'm not leaving Orlando."
No.
There's a quote from Chris Rock that I'm not going to use, but I was like, "Really?" So I decided, at that point, like 15, 16 years in sports, like I got to fly on the team planes. I got to do some great stuff, great relationships. I was kind of accepted on the basketball operations side of things and the front office side, which is kind of unique. But that's when from there, I was like, I got to do something different. So that's when I started Monster. And that idea came from, a client at the Magic that was at Bell South Mobility, a lady named Wendy Clark, who ascended to the head of marketing for AT&T, and then she was the CMO of Coca-Cola. Now she's the CEO of a massive agency in New York. But she saw a company named Reactrix that did gestural-based projection. So it'd project on the floor, and if you waved your hands, like water would ripple and fish would swim away, like really like a UFO landing. And she, I told her I'm starting my own company. We're going to do something in digital, but we want to get beyond. And this is right as everybody started talking about digital in the out-of-home media space and place-based digital, when nobody knew what digital meant. Digital meant like slam some screens up in a Borders. And
about what year was this?
It was about 18 years ago. So what's the math on that?
Yeah. 2002, 3.
Yeah. So about then. I mean, it was like when I started, right when 9/11 hit. Like I was like, I'm about 6 months into it, and like planes flew into buildings. I'm like, oh shit, like this is really going to have an impact on business. Oh, I remember going through certain airports, man, like Atlanta, and it was like just me walking, down the hallway going to a flight to meet with somebody, and I'm like, it was scary. It was really freaky, but she set me up with a company. She's like, go meet these guys. They're in California. They're called Reactrix. And they had like $150 million in venture capital money. And they had about 110 employees. And they were throwing the technology out there. She goes, they don't know what they're doing. She goes, that's why I want you to meet with them. Because with your contacts, like you could take this to so many places and I'll buy it. I'll buy it anywhere. So you would think if somebody at that position at AT&T that's got the bandwidth financially to write a check for that, that somebody that she introduces you to is going to pay attention or at least want to meet with you. Like I walked into this guy's office. I'm not going to use his name because I don't get in trouble, but like he stood up. I literally flew from Orlando to Oakland or San Francisco, Oakland because I flew in Southwest. I go to this unbelievable office. I'm like, these cats are living on somebody's money. It wasn't their own because they were living large. And I walked into his office, big, beautiful office. He stands up, holds his arms. He said, you got 5 minutes. I'm like, 5 minutes? I'm like, Wendy, he was like, I know. I'm like, isn't she your only client? And he's like, yeah, but I don't care. I mean, he's so arrogant. I was like, wow. I'm like, I have a lot of context. I think we could create kind of a synergistic partnership. I could bring you in and blah, blah, blah. And he was like completely arrogant. And I'm like, all right. I said, so nobody does this in the world but you, huh? He's like, oh yeah, we're the only people that do it, which is bullshit when somebody says that. I'm like, huh, really? He goes, nice meeting you. And that was it. And I was like, out. And I'm like, went to, got a cab, went back to the Oakland airport, and I was sitting there like so pissed off. Like there's so many things I should say, but I'm not going to say. But I just started making phone calls, and I found there was a company in Toronto that actually had the exact same product and actually had not a patent pending. They had a actual patent on gestural technology, an actual legal U.S. patent. So guess where I went next? Like that day, Toronto. And I worked out a licensing agreement with this company to bring their product into the United States with the full power of their patent. And I was David versus Goliath. It was me and a kind of band of misfits. And we started talking to malls and pro sports teams and just went to town. Like we went to war. But I mean, they're out, Reactrix we put out of business, and we kind of built it from there with, strategic partnerships with Outfront Media, which was CBS and Mass Transit in New York, making these massive projection walls underground, like at Times Square corridor and Herald Square. Just changed some of the dynamics of what out-of-home media was. It was now big, huge, fluid, moving, trackable, like unique content that would make people slow down, even in the subway station. And then we started doing airports, and then we started doing a lot of trade shows, and we started doing bigger experiential things. And then we went from projection to LCD screens kind of came on the scene then. And when the bezels started getting thinner and thinner, we started building walls, like 3x3 huge walls, and we figured out how to make a multi-touch using a laser technology that you could, because this was before iPhones too. So we were doing this stuff way before iPhones. And we really kind of innovated and came up with stuff that had never been done before. And the moment you do that, you're like the pioneer with the arrows in your back, man. Like everybody's like, oh, we can do it. And then we became, we were calling into the big ad agencies in New York. And like they were like, we're the Rubes from Florida, from Orlando, the cheesy city of Orlando, coming to New York to talk to the high and mighty, big, bright, it was just really interesting. And the crazy thing is now, like with these agencies, we've got amazing relationships. They get attacked by so many people coming at them to sell them stuff. They're somewhat jaded. So you don't know that going into it when you've never, because in sports, everything was direct. Every single thing I did was direct. Like I go straight to Ted Ward at Geico and sit down and talk about a deal for, $1 million. Like I didn't have to deal with an agency. But we built these relationships with agencies, but then everybody in New York that saw what we did started thinking, oh, we can do that. And they would try to outsource it, or they would call us and try to get us to do it on the down low, like slimy kind of stuff. So a lot of people started ripping off what we were doing. So then it became land grabs and who could deploy it bigger and faster, and which is a very dangerous thing to do. So but we built it up. I mean, we got to the point where we were doing big 3D building projections. Like we can do it pretty much anything. And about 6 years into it, we were by Ad Week, Brand Week, Media Week, we're named one of the top 10 hottest media companies in the United States. And we're based in Orlando. Nobody in Orlando knows who we are. Never have. Still don't. And, then the dynamics of everything started changing again. So, we started looking at getting away from, mass transit and airports, because those bigger media companies just copied what we were doing. We showed them how to fish, and they're like, we don't need you anymore. So we're like, oh, we were doing bus shelters, making them interactive in San Francisco and in Washington, and all these big strategic partnerships with the biggest media companies in the world. And then they just cannibalized it after they really figured it out. And we taught them how to do it. So good for us, I guess. Maybe a bad business plan, but we went back to doing Experiential. And then from Experiential, like we were doing all of Estee Lauder's global events, which was really cool. Like we were doing it in Spain, we were doing it in Germany. We did them like just big, huge, beautiful events. And
what does that entail for you guys exactly?
Like we would we would project from behind the stage. So all the executives would get up and talk about their piece of Estee Lauder. And then we would create these bigger digital experiences in their breakout rooms. It were just they're very visual, all of their products.
Yeah.
But we kind of were like the flashy, shiny, beautiful thing. But, as, the chairman of Estee Lauder, one of the Lauder members would walk up, like everything would transition on the screen. And we had people controlling the content. And he would leave, and the head of sales would come up, and whatever narrative he was going to talk about would start to spill into these big, beautiful screens behind them. And so, I mean, it was cool. And from that, like, they were like, hey, man, can you just put up screens at Macy's Herald Square? Like, we can't even get people to put up, legitimate screens. Like, I'm like, yeah, we can. That'd be the easy part for us. So then we started doing permanent digital installation with Estee Lauder. And then all of a sudden we talked to Loft, this lady named Libra Ballin, who's with Tiffany now. Like, so we sat out with her, and she's like, I want to do Times Square. I've got 42nd Street by Grand Central Station. I've got Chicago. I've got all these markets. I want to do something big and visual. So we put in these big, huge, beautiful LCD walls. We pushed the content to it. She was wonderful. She started introducing us around. Then all of a sudden, we got Tommy Hilfiger calls us. Then Donna Karen calls us. And then Vineyard Vine calls us. And now we do all of Vineyard. We've done every Vineyard Vine store in the country with permanent. Now Vineyard Vine comes back. It's like, hey, we got to deal with Jim Nance. Can we do one of your experiential things in Grand Central Station, and like come up with something like a pop-up store? Like, yeah. So we did a touchdown dance to introduce Jim Nance as a NFL spokesperson for Vineyard Vines, and you could record yourself doing a touchdown dance in Grand Central Station in the Vineyard Vine store, and then it hits your phone. You can stylize it with all the Vineyard Vine stuff, and you can post it out socially. So all of a sudden, that stuff started popping up. So now we're doing experiential stuff for them, and we're doing experiential stuff for Donna Karen, and we're still doing huge installations permanently in stores. And it just started moving in that direction. And then, I had really kind of reformed the company. Once again, I told you prior to this call, like, I got rid of all the, I'm going to say assholes, all the assholes, bad people, bad karma people. I kept, the 10 people who did 90% of the work and are amazing people. Gave them percentages of the company. We restarted. Everything was rolling. We had some huge projects, and our friend, the Rona showed up, and we went literally one day. I got phone calls that, about $5 million in deals were just postponed or delayed or no longer because of COVID. So, hauling hay to pro sports, to fashionistas, to big ad agency, the Mad Men concept of, martinis at lunch. And like, man, it's been an interesting ride. And now I'm like, we're back focused on, once getting through this craziness of Corona, or COVID, or whatever you want to call it. And really just getting to the other side of it. And it really does. We're looking at keeping the experiential chops, because, man, we get to do some really cool creative things at some really cool events, which keeps people engaged and creative, because we do a lot of creative concepting as well. We're getting pulled back into sports more and more because of what I told you about what we did for like the golf channel with Roy McIlroy. And we created a virtual Roy McIlroy kiosk that he could, ask if you want to be his caddy. You can take a photo with him. It looks like you're really with him. And so a lot of teams started saying, hey, can we do this? Like NFL teams, NBA teams. So I was like, yeah, man. So I'm like, why don't we look back at sports, because they're going to need something coming out of, COVID. There's no fans. How do we engage with fans? There's a company that is a sister company that I'm an investor in called Social Venue. I talked to you about. Drew Brees as a partner. It's got an amazing user generated content platform that's white labeled that teams can use. On the MonsterXP side, we've got such unique ideation around what can really work for potential sponsors in sports. Just with at least I understand the landscape, so it's not like I'm there because, dude, these anybody in pro sports, they get approached by everybody selling. I got a gum remover. I got a squirt gun with a logo on it. Like, they get so much shit thrown at them. It is ridiculous. But I know enough people in sports, but I'm not going to be a cowboy that's out there like shooting up their landscape, screwing things up. We can be very additive to what they do. We can help them with ideas to take back to a client. We can execute on those. So I think, that's why, to me, going back into sports at this point is really interesting. We're going to continue with retail. I think retail is going to be one of those things that's got to be somewhat reimagined. But, we're still like Vineyard Vitamin Shop. We got Vitamin Shop because of Donna Karen, oddly enough. And we're doing all the vitamin shop stores, and they're doing a huge move into the marketplace because GNC is going out. But things like that. I mean, so we're still going to do retail. I think we're going to focus any of our retail capabilities on bigger iconic retail locations and make a really big impact on fewer locations. We do a lot of pop-up shops, which we've done some really, really cool ones, where we go in and rent a vacant storefront like Manhattan or Chicago or downtown Kansas City, and you create an experience for 4 or 6 weeks that's just like a store. You can pull all the data out. You know what people's tendencies are in Kansas City are different than what they're going to be in New York. So those are great things that we do. So all of those things kind of mix together. And I think then when you step back a little bit further as a company, if you want to put any ego behind it, like you got a fashion cosmetic kind of arm that you can work with, and you've got the sports arm. Music is intertwined and all that. So once, music and festivals and things start coming back to life as well. Post-COVID, like we've got a real cool project that we just did with the artist named Jeffrey. It's at the Orlando Museum of Art, the one by the Adventist Hospital.
Yeah.
Go in, like big digital screens on these big funky contraptions that you can take your photo and it puts it up. I mean, so we kind of did all the technology stuff on that. So you look at that, it's like that's a nice, interesting application for music festivals, to where it's something that's different, non-traditional, as opposed to just a photo kiosk. So there's all these things that I think kind of mix together. And with our background, the one thing is, like, we can come up with creative ideas. We can tell you what really works. We have a ton of case studies. And we can say, listen, here's why these work. Here are the environments this content works. Fast moving, slow moving, dwell time, analytics, and it's second screen. So everything's being pushed back to your phone. And if it's compelling, fun content, people are going to engage with it.
Yeah, share it. But I mean, I think that really helps, too, with you, is you have an understanding of really all sides, from the retail side to the activation to the team side. So, I mean, you kind of, have seen it every which way, and I think it makes it a little easier to come up with those creative ideas to, drive exactly what everyone needs in those groups, whether it be or a team. So
it's just, it's one of those things too, man. And the way my brain works, like everything like floods to the front of my head, and it can't go out of my mouth at the same time. But like I always grew up watching Fred Sanford, Sanford & Son, and there was a guy named Lenny, had a big coat on, and he would walk in and say, "I'm Lenny. If I ain't got it, they ain't any." And he'd open up his jacket, and he had all kind of watches, pots and pans. I don't want to be that guy, but when you get on a call, like I had a call with an NBA team yesterday, and they're like, "Hey man, do you do menu boards?" And I'm like on the concourse menu boards? It's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, we did. Actually, we did them for Six Flags. And while you waited in line to go on a ride or to get something to drink, it was gamified, so you could play a game in real time with everybody else. So your perceived wait time's less. I said, or you can have it just push food products you're needing to get off the shelf because they're sitting there a little bit too long. Like, yeah, we do that. But like, how do you turn around every team you talk to? Is like, man, if you need new menu boards, we're your guy. Oh, if you need we're your guy. And it's kind of like, I just say, listen, if it plugs in and you want some compelling, unique content, and you want to be able to qualify it, quantify it, look at it with all the buzzy words that everybody needs right now, it's like we've been doing that for years. And if you have something that you really want to take to a client or to your season ticket base and create something different and engaging, like, let's have a conversation. We'll do it for free. And karma hopefully comes back our way. And you're like, hey, all right, let's do it with JP and the Monster guys. Like they're on point. They understand our world. They get fashion, they get sports, and that we can execute. And once again, I'm telling you, common sense, accountability, and no assholes. Like that's our mission vision statement, I think.
Well, how do you go in though? Because I mean, you do have so many different, I don't want to say angles, but you got so many different offerings. Everything is pretty much customized. So how do you go in and really hone in like what you can do for them so that hopefully, they're not, number one, overwhelmed with everything because there's just so much, and they understand quickly what you do.
It's somewhat easier because I know a lot of people on the sports side, so I can call them in advance and go, hey man, what's important to you guys right now? Like the social venue thing that we're doing, and a guy named Sam Osman, great story for this guy. He started Dreamcast, it's a company. This is a side note, but if you go haircut, doctor's office, dentist's office, spa, salon, and you get a text update that says don't forget your appointment or a reminder, he came up with that. Like he did, and they sold his company to Intuit for $450 million a couple of years ago. Nobody knew about his company. Nobody knew they existed. And then one day it was in the newspaper. Intuit just buys this company nobody knows about for $450 million. So his whole premise was to keep small business and people coming into those offices and keeping those points. Same thing with season tickets, group sales, keeping people in a venue. So that is always, I can call somebody and go, hey, we got something interesting. Drew Brees is involved in it as well. Sam's got a great background. So you can have that conversation. Everybody's like, yeah, that's interesting, man. User-generated content is a hard thing too. Like it's not, you see a lot of commercials on TV about it. Everybody bulls it back down to TikTok. It's a little bigger and deeper than that if you use it the right way. And we've done a good job thinking through the best way to utilize it. It's kind of rewards based. So there's a lot of things with the understanding of the team behind it. So having that conversation, is good because then I go like, what else is important outside of that? And that's where menu boards is something we're thinking about. I'm like, all right. And then a lot of it is like, we really need help just kicking around ideas on clients, like in key categories. I'm like, dude, send me the list. And, it's typically, here's your automotive, and here's this, and here's that, And the other thing that's interesting to them too is like, I sit in this space with these bigger ad agencies and kind of non-traditional, forms of media that don't really go into sports, but they like the demographic. Like I have the ability to say, hey man, I got a thing with Netflix that we're doing right now, and we have to deal with Showtime. Like they might come in and do incremental spins with you, in your stadium. Would you be interested? So those things help. And that's where I can get in and have break off conversations. And they typically set up a meeting with the marketing team, a social member, ticket sales, sponsorship sales. So you have a kind of a bandwidth meeting with people, and you can, I have a strong enough sense when we present, like, all right, I want to show a couple of these video links because it's going to get this person, and this person. They're all different in the way they think.
Yep.
Each one of them is kind of creatively speaks emotionally to a very certain type of person, so you can pull them in. So that works on the fashion side. It's a little bit easier in the sports because it's like, what should we do in our stores, with digital? And everybody's going, I'm like, listen, just start with the basics, man. Get good screens you can communicate with and future-proof. So there's so many people that have gone out and bought digital in a hurry for retail before COVID that I'm like, you went out and bought, I always say these two screens are the same, right? This one has a remote control, this one doesn't. Same price. Which one are you going to buy? Well, I want to be the one with the remote control. Like, all right, good. So many people bought the ones without the remote control. It's crazy. So every screen that we put in, we know the environment, like, listen, the potential for touch or gestural or all the things you want is already baked into this. It's the same price. And we can communicate with it from Orlando. We can push content to it. We can turn it on and off. If there's an issue with the system, we know about it before you know about it. So we have all that stuff that we've built in. So we have all the conversation points. It's just, it is controlling the presentation, not to be like, Lenny with the big coat with all kind of stuff in it. But if they trust you enough and you know them, the hardest part is if you don't know somebody and you're pitching them, they're like, your attention span's about 30 minutes with them. And if you say too much, you seem like you're full of it. So, knowing that, I'll tailor back to that as well.
So how have you kind of attacked, like this time during COVID? I mean, I know you said you lost some business there. Like, are you back, like, pounding the pavement, so to speak, or are you guys?
I'm pounding Zoom, dude. I hate it. I'm getting sick of it. Like the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Zoom after Zoom call. I had my president and I, Chris Pulaski, flew to San Antonio for a meeting with a company called Grunt Style, which does like military centric, like kind of really cool, vibey shirts, hats, very military themed, very patriotic. They're killing it online. So we've had meetings with them about, doing some really cool promotional things. They're thinking about kind of stepping out to the marketplace right now. And I'm like, because it's clutter free, because nobody's out doing anything. So you jump into it. So we've had that. I've been to Chicago once, but man, it's mostly been Zoom calls. A lot of text to a lot of people, like just texting, like hoping them, hope everybody's well and safe. But it's a lot of, hey man, how's it going? What's going on? Do you hear anything?
Right.
Cities are coming back to life in New York, but everybody's still remote. Man. Like I'm having Zoom calls with executives that run major agencies, and they're all sitting like in Sarasota or South Florida. I'm like, Jesus. Man, yeah, I'm burning up phone calls, any way to communicate and stay in front. And I mean, really a lot of it too is like in truthfulness and sincerity. It's like, you just want to make sure everybody's all right. And man, I feel so bad because there's so many companies that are just on the verge of going
on.
out. And then and we look at it the same way. It's like, man, I've tried to hold on to all of our key people, but yeah, we got to get deals going, man. Like, and you keep thinking, I kept saying, if we get to October, November will be all right. Now I'm revising that, going, if we get to
end of the year,
February. So it is, man. Everybody's in our company is like, we've got the doors, the doors are open, but we damn sure make sure we're locking them at night and, we're ready to go the next day. So we're hard.
Just hope that these companies don't sit on the sidelines too long, because it takes time to implement things, So, and I've kind of, from talking with teams on more of the ticket and partnership side of things, I was talking to some guests, and the more teams put everything on hold, the longer it is to fill that pipeline back up and get things back on once they're, back in full swing. So hopefully,
on the team side, though, people really, between coaches and front office people I've talked to, like they're just like, it's the unknown. They don't know if they're going to start in January for basketball or possibly February. They keep hearing, originally it was like Christmas Day could be the new kickoff or the tip off for basketball. It's just everything's in flux, man. And, I do think some of them are just sitting back like they're not doing anything, or they are killing themselves because they're having to redo all these sponsorship agreements, for make goods.
Yeah, refunds or get on what else can we give them to make up for that so we don't have to refund. But I mean, I still think people are buying even in this climate. I mean, it's obviously not like but even when I was up with the Nationals, through COVID, we were selling. Obviously sales down, but we still did a few $100,000 over, 2-3 months. So, it's just finding ones who are ready to proceed. But I think what you're doing now is key for your success, is just to keep your name in front of these people, checking in with your contacts, and be ready whenever someone is ready. Really,
no, it is. And and a lot of it too is like I say, people have to reimagine sports. You're gonna have to reimagine retail. You're gonna have to reimagine, concerts, and there's a lot. But once again, like a lot of what we've done in the past is taking an experience to people, and people will, no matter what, even with COVID. Like you're in Florida, people are out moving around, man. They just move mask on. Like you can go to some other cities, like New York. Everybody I talk to in New York is like, it's a ghost town. Like people are, because they got them locked down.
Yeah.
People are out moving around. So if you've got any dollars and you want to create engagement in the potential of a memory moment to get somebody, maybe buy a ticket when you come back, or watch the game, or engage on some level, like people are out. Like take some of this unique content with your sports brand out, or your retail fashion brand, take it out to people and let them engage. Like don't get online, And God knows the NBA needs people to watch, needed people to watch the games on TV because ratings are down. They should have been out in markets promoting those games, 100%.
And then even now, like what's your role with the company, and kind of what's your day-to-day look like typically?
My role really is like I am kind of the lead dude that just tries to kick doors open. And I guess I always say that, like just to get in front of people, to keep I have a lot of relationships, so I have a lot of like just touch. Like yesterday, I had probably CEO of a big media company. We just caught up about a potential opportunity just through conversation. Two CEOs of two really cool experiential companies. Because the other thing I think is a big thing that I do is creating a community and a network of people that we can do a piece of a project, and they pull us into it. So there's a lot of companies in New York and LA that can pull us in to do something very cool and funky around a bigger program they do. Like, we're fine with that as well. So I have a lot of those. I don't have as much that I have to do because we've only, got 8 or 9 key people that have been with me so long that we have a call every Monday and every Friday. And it's kind of bookends. Then we do some creative contenting, call on a Wednesday. That's about it. But everybody kind of knows what to do. And my job is really to push into the agencies, reach out to the teams, set up, Zoom presentations. And then I bring in, Chris Pulaski or Bill O'Neill, people that are really good at specific things on presentations that I might, screw up on, because they're going to ask me really technical questions. I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's why I got these smart guys.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot of, it's a lot of networking, man. It's a lot of follow through. Hey, you got anything? What's happening? What do you hear? There's a lot of touch points out there. And I think that's a big problem too, is some people are just taking time off and like not doing it. Like I've been texting people.
I'd go crazy. I mean,
I'm not being the cheesy sales guy, like trying to sell something. I'm like, hey man, I hope you well. Like, I'm staying.
Yeah. No,
so
I feel it too.
But it's weird as shit because I'm like, I'm sitting in my kitchen, man, talking to you. Like, I finally started going in just out of like 2 days a week to the office. So I'm gonna start going in more and more. But it's just everybody I talk to is like, I talk to team executives. They're sitting in, they're sitting in their kitchen. Like, we talk about Zoom calls, like how many, it could be 5 people on screen, like 3 people are in kitchens, 2 people, one guy's in his bedroom, one in the garage. Like, and they're executives.
Yeah.
It's so crazy, man. Like, I need to be around, people and engagement. But
yeah, I mean, I think it fuels it. I mean, I was fortunate enough where I was able to continue to go in the office every day when I was in Virginia, and we had a big office and really nobody else was in there. So, but yeah, slowly people started getting back. I don't know. I feed off that. You have that group, and especially when you're, in the grind. So, no, I
was traveling nonstop too, though. Like before COVID, like I literally, before COVID hit, I was in New Orleans for a fashion thing, flew to New York for meetings, and flew to LA for meetings with Ticketmaster and some other. I mean, literally, I went hotspot to hotter spot to hotspot back to Orlando. And I'm like, I didn't get COVID, man. I'm like,
quarantine.
But it's kind of been somewhat refreshing just staying, somewhat local and Zoom calls, but things have got to open back up. People have got to get back out there.
Do you think that as we get out all this issue, do you think that your travel will resume, or do you think that you'll be able to do more stuff remotely, like with Zoom and other technology that'll help you be more efficient?
I think it's going to change radically, and I think there's a mindset and an age frame. When I say age frame, like my age, like you got to go in the office, everybody's got to come in. But I can tell with agencies and with the people, especially around New York, and somebody that lives in New Jersey that's has to make it all the way over to 3rd Avenue on the east side of Manhattan. Like, that commute sucks. And if they can stay remote and not have to go in, like, that's going to start really happening. So then my effectiveness of going into New York and sitting in a presentation room with 18 people and talking about what accounts everybody handles at this agent, like, I think those days are kind of gone. So people that haven't been into these agencies and have relationships that you can get RFPs, like, it's going to be much harder because you're not picking up the phone calling these people at their house.
Yeah,
they're by email only, and they will respond to you only if you're not going to screw something up.
So those relationships are key.
Yeah, big time. But I really do think about it, man. With like somebody that's new into the space, I'm like, how are these people going to get in front of these? I think pro sports teams will come back just by the nature of people are coming to a sports arena, the office. I think that advertising, a lot of other things I see. I mean, we've even had a conversation ourselves of like, listen, our lease is up in 12 months. Do we need to have an office? Like, we need a warehouse for all of our equipment, but do we really need this? And half the, we 2 or 3 people like, man, it's so much better for me because I live in Lake Nona and it's like be with my kids and time frame and drop, I kind of get that, but I'm still going to
like on the fence with it. Like, I'm one of those guys like, man, you're in the office. I mean, this is not like, but then I think about how much I get done at home. I don't, there's less bullshitting around. There's less like distraction.
I know, man, but I need like Ritalin or something. Cause like, I was in the office yesterday and it's like, Kristen was there and Angel and James. And like, I was like, yeah, it was good. I was busy, but like we had a conversation this morning and I said, listen, we need to rethink what we're doing. Cause like we're doing Zoom presentations. I'm doing them from my freaking kitchen. Like I should be at the office. Like we have these huge interactive walls set up that could be running, NBA content, Showtime, like all of our big clients.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to go, oh, what is that? And it's like, oh yeah, we have a permanent, installation and Showtime's a big partner. Like, oh, I mean, that's a conversation. And then Kristen, our COO, these guys, everybody in my company makes really funny videos and GIFs of me because it's easy to make fun of me. But like one of them is a dancing hot dog. She's like, you could put up the dancing hot dog. I'm like, that's not a bad idea. I mean, it is terrible.
It breaks the ice a little bit.
I know. But I'm like, we might as well create a studio look and do Zooms, and that's just the backdrop as opposed to the virtual backdrop of me sitting there with like, a palm tree and, some waves. And if I move my head, everything moves, might as well do what we do, kind of mentally in the background. So, so we're seeing them. But yeah, if you get bored, you ought to just swing over to our office.
Yeah, what area?
Podcast with me as a dancing hot dog in the background.
I want to see that video. We need that. You have to shoot that over.
I will. If you're serious, I'll send it over.
Yeah, I want to see that, man.
You can post it, man. My wife's on. She's like, that looks perverted. And I'm like, it's just me and a dancing hot dog. Like, it's funny as shit, though.
That's funny. If you're not going to have fun, don't even, why do it?
No, they all make fun of me, man. But, like, it's deserved, so I don't mind it.
Well, no, that's good. It's fascinating. And I have a much clearer picture of what you guys do now. And it's exciting, man. It's coming out of this. I mean, I think the creativity is going to be key because live events and other things are going to be different. They're going to. So what you have to offer is definitely going to probably be even in more demand for the live events.
And I tell people too, like, the saying is true, like content is king. If you have good content, creative content, doesn't matter, not just for a commercial or an ad. I mean, for a movie, for sitcoms, like for, comedy stand-up, like you have good content, people are engaged. So, the more you can be creative with a client in a collaborative fashion that speaks to the need of what they need, like, typically, to me, that's going to win the day no matter what. And another thing that is really interesting, like people started making fun of QR codes, 3 and 4 years ago. Like, I'd even use in a presentation, like, how would you do this? I'm like, oh, we'll do a QR code. And everybody would laugh because it's a joke. Guess what? Everybody wants QR codes now. I mean, think about restaurants, every menu's on a QR code.
Exactly.
We have 2 potential campaigns going out the door right now that are, once again, everything is being activated with a QR code to make a virtual reality experience come to life off of something. But it's really interesting because once again, you're not touching anything, but you're engaging, and then it's coming to your phone, and then you can be connected to it. It makes a lot of sense. So it's just, some of the old stuff is kind of relevant right now. Like static billboards, really good content. Like, think about it. It's just a lot of interesting things, and I think you got to stay active and in the world, man, or you're gonna get dusty. Somebody's gonna run over you because things will be changing quick.
Man, they change in the blink of an eye, for sure.
No.
Hey, John, what's your website?
Say what?
What's your web address?
What is it? I don't even know. It's 33333330. No, it's
I was like, what the hell? That's a good.
I was gonna do a Joe Biden impersonation, but I don't want to go there. It's Monster, MonsterXP. That's an X and a P. Get that? .net. So it's a .net. Don't screw it up with .com. Even though we do have the .com now, so we're gonna do that. And then the other one to look at really is Social Venue, which I told you about.
Yeah.
But MonsterXP, it gives you a good cross section of what we do. More on a very visual, experiential and retail. So check those out. It's good stuff by a bunch of great people that I work with, and I want everybody to know that I'm a genius.
Indeed, you are. Indeed, you are.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's why I'll send you the dancing hot dog.
And then we're gonna have the dancing hot dog right after this.
So,
what? Thanks for joining me. It was great chatting with you. Let's grab some lunch sometime or something. We're not far from each other, so.
No, definitely, dude. And we should, you never know, chat on the sports stuff. Seriously.
Yeah, definitely. Got a lot of contacts, but
I'm going to do the walk in a hazmat suit. So.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, man. You're a good dude. Appreciate it, Andrew.